Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I am John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic for you today. Let's do it. What was your "we need to leave here right now" moment? Please remember to like, share, hype, listen, and ask for shoutouts, and subscribe.
I was at a fair with my wife and 6-year-old daughter. From the moment we arrived, I had the feeling we shouldn't be there. I can't explain it beyond a feeling in the pit of my stomach that was telling me this wasn't the place for us. I told my wife, but she brushed it off because she loves the fair. The girls were having fun, and we had tickets for the monster truck show. Halfway through the monster truck, there was an intermission, and I took that moment to say, nope, we're leaving now. Not going to argue about it, it's time to leave now. It was a 25-minute drive home, and by the time we arrived home, it was already on the news, the local paper's website, and all over Facebook, that there had been a gang-related shooting at the fairgrounds in the concessions area we had to walk through on the way out. Huge police response, EMS, etc. It happened probably less than a minute after we'd gotten to the car. We didn't hear the shots. We never told our daughter, but needless to say, my wife trusts my gut now. My wife was about a month out from the due date for our first child. Something didn't seem right to her, and she wanted to go in to get checked. I immediately drove her to the hospital. The baby's heart rate dropped really low suddenly, and then did an emergency C-section. He came out APGAR 1, 0 as death, looked exhausted. Anyone wouldn't raise his arms, and was in the NICU for 8 days. Many of them under an oxygen hood. Right after he was born, the anesthesiologist said to us that he might be disabled. I've never been so scared in my life, worried that we would lose him. Many years later, he's in college now and perfectly healthy, thankfully. Not quite a leave, but I was living in Kansas. My boyfriend and I were sitting on a friend's front porch when cops came flying up the street, slammed on the brakes, and yelled, "Get in the house!" We did. Our friend wasn't home, but thankfully the door was unlocked. Turned out, there was a man walking around shooting anything that moved. We didn't know this at first. This was around 2002, so we didn't have the net in our pockets. Our friend came home maybe an hour later and told us what was going on. Not long after, there was a commotion in the backyard. It was the guy with the police on his tail. They arrested him a few feet from the back door. When my husband and I were teenagers and first started dating, we were parked in an empty golf course for some privacy. We had been to this spot before, and it was a great place to walk around at night and then make out in the car. Tonight was different. As soon as we pulled in, something felt wrong. I reclined my chair back to hide myself, paranoid someone was watching us. We sat for a few moments, making awkward small talk. I was suddenly filled with overwhelming dread and sheepishly asked if we could leave. My then boyfriend immediately obliged, a little too quickly, considering the hormones of teenage boys and plans we had to fool around. He peeled out of the parking lot, my seat still fully reclined because at this point I'm absolutely convinced we aren't alone. The bottom of the Honda scrapes the ditch of the driveway as we pull out in a panic. At this point, neither of us had communicated with one another what we were feeling, but his reaction was enough to know we were on the same page. We were in danger. We speed a few miles away before we broke the silence, and I put my seat back in its upright position. I tried to laugh it off and admitted I wasn't sure why I was scared. Neither of us really had an explanation for the sudden fear we both experienced, but decided not to question it too much. We found out after the fact there was a brutal attack on a couple teens walking home from the burger joint by the golf course by a schizophrenic homeless man. I'm convinced we both felt like someone was watching us, because he was. And I know if we had gone to our normal late-night walk, something horrible would have happened. This happened almost 16 years ago, but I can still remember that fear so vividly. On a trail in the Great Smoky Mountains, I can't recall the actual trail, but something like Indian Grave, and out of nowhere we heard this noise that we thought could only be made by a large, severely injured cow. All three of us, faces drained of color, and we booked it out of there. Later, we were sitting in a restaurant in Dollywood, and via YouTube, we found the source of the noise, a baby bear. I've never heard that noise before or since, but my heart skipped a beat that day, and something deep in my animal brain knew to leave that location immediately. This was 4 years ago, right after COVID. Went to a well-known Cancun all-inclusive resort on vacation. It was super early in the morning, just past dawn. Had the infinity pool to myself, nice, and took advantage. Wandered to the infinity edge, which looked out over the beach and ocean. I'm there at the edge, enjoying the view, when motion below me caught my eye. Two guys were below me, behind the hotel sign, digging in the sand. They peeled up a box a little bigger than a shoebox. Something told me not to move, but also not to look. I shifted my gaze, feeling oddly both calm and terrified, so that I was looking at the horizon, like I hadn't even noticed them. My peripheral vision confirmed they stopped digging and were looking up at me. Nobody moved for a few minutes, then they went back to their work. I slowly glided backwards away from the edge, then out of the pool and swiftly back to our room. Later that morning, as drinks and loud music got into full swing, 3 police officers came and were investigating that spot that they had been digging. I'm positive my ability to look like I was just a dumb tourist enjoying the view kept me from becoming concerning to them.
Hey guys, again, just wanted to give a little shout out to Fletcher Schultz. Thank you for the years of support going back to the AI days. That's a long time. And Bubbly Pink Soda, again, thank you and hello. Just want to also say again about the rant, which would probably be 2 days ago now, on the World War II post. I appreciate the feedback. Positive. It's good to know that we are somewhat of a similar mindset at the ridiculousness of global politics and the geopolitical theater. I'm not going to get into it anymore, at least right now. Enjoy the rest of the video, guys, and we will see you tomorrow.
13 years ago, at the beach parking lot where everyone came to hang out as young adults in the summer evenings, something just came over me. It wasn't dread or fear, but something just felt off. Overall, a bad feeling. I've never experienced anything like it before, but my gut told me my brain that it's time to go home. Honestly, it wasn't strong enough of a feeling that I could have easily changed my mind due to my lack of fear. Not sure why. I just have never been an incredibly fearful person. I said to my friend at the time that I'm leaving, something feels off here. I get home and less than 2 hours later a gang shooting happened at the beach. Unfortunately, a few friends from my old high school were shot. Fortunately, they survived. They weren't the target, just wrong place, wrong time. Luckily, I left because I was about 6 months pregnant at the time. Who knows what could have happened if I stayed. Was camping at a national park with 2 friends, 3 of us in a tent. One of those spots that you drive up and a picnic table and a fire pit, so it's not deep woods camping. Middle of the night I have to pee. Go out to a nearby spot and do my business, no problem. Walking back, I stop to look at the stars and light a cig. I'm there maybe a minute or 2, when suddenly I have a wave of what I can only describe as primal instinct. My adrenaline sharpened everything as I listened. Nothing had changed. No sounds around, but I just knew something was there and was watching me. I calmly put my cig out and walked back to the tent without any sudden movements. Got in the tent and waited, listening. There was nothing, so I figured I must have spooked myself out. Went back to sleep without issue. In the morning, we found our camp spot absolutely destroyed. Some animal had come through looking for food, I guess, but not messed with the tent, thankfully. Even my friend's old baseball hat that had been sweating in all summer was ripped to shreds. We found pieces of it all over. It had been sitting on the picnic table. I know to listen to my gut from now on. I was staying over at a friend's house for the first time. I was around 11 or 12. Her dad took us to a gas station and I grabbed some candy and went to pay, and he got angry. Not like jokingly angry, but actually offended I was going to pay for my own stuff. After that, I felt something was off and let him pay for my stuff begrudgingly. Before night, I just couldn't shake how uncomfortable I was. I kept thinking I was super sensitive, but I still called my parents and convinced them to pick me up. Come to find out, the guy was a pedophile and had molested a few of her friends during sleepovers. I found out a few months later that he had R'd her and her little sister, and she invited friends thinking it would spare her since he would focus on the friend. Instead, I'm now a mom and just feel so angry but also pity for her so deeply. She was willing to sacrifice her friends to spare her and her sister, and has to live with that now. Wife and I did a road trip down south in New Zealand to a place called Akaroa. It's a cute little French town on the west coast of the South Island. We're fans of hiking, so we parked up at a nearby forest trail and started our walk. It was like 3 p.m. on a beautiful sunny day, but we didn't see a single other person on this track. We're very used to bushwalking in remote places, but at some point during this walk I felt goosebumps and a sense of dread. It was very weird. I haven't felt like that very often. I noticed there were no birds chirping at either, which felt very odd. It really felt like someone was watching us. At some point I told my wife I don't like this feeling and I think we should cut our hike short and get back to the car. We both hurried back. Still don't have any explanation for that day, but I can very clearly remember how I felt. Everything in my body was screaming at me to just turn around and get back in the car. Sat in a pub in London with my friend debating getting one more beer before heading back to my house. He really wanted to get a half, but I had this unbelievably strong feeling that I have to leave right then. It was like a tangible flood of pure anxiety, to the point where I thought this is really fucking weird. I just said to my friend, "Nah, I'm good, let's go." We caught the bus just outside the pub and went back no problem. 2 days later, he messaged me, look at this article. The same bus stop, 30 minutes later, a homeless man randomly attacked a woman waiting for the bus and stabbed her repeatedly to death. If we had that half, it's almost a sure thing we would have been right there when that lady was at that time. Could we have prevented it if we were there? Would one of us have died instead? Was that why I had a weird feeling? I can't explain it, but it chills me to the bone. Climbing a glacier. It's a beautiful day, but we can see clouds on the other side of the mountain, and it sounds like thunder. We can close to our destination, about 150 meters from a rock face we need to pass through, and clouds roll in fast. The temperature drops, and we can't see the rock face we're going toward, so we take a break to see if it blows through. One of our group went up the hill a bit to relieve themselves, and suddenly a bolt of lightning hit the rock face, arcing across the gap we were planning to go through. Skidded, slipped, and rolled down the glacier to get away from the FRN. It was just before Christmas, and me and my then boyfriend, now husband, had gone back to my hometown to visit my family. We'd gone out for some drinks, us, Mum, and my sister, and we bumped into some woman who lived on my mum's street. She insisted on inviting us to the after party after the pub kicked out. Mum got super excited, wanted to go. Sister said no and went to bed, but we were both forced or guilt-tripped into going because Mum didn't want to go alone. We get there and go in through the front door. I immediately beeline to the back of the house, the kitchen, and just have this pit of my stomach feeling to scope out how I'm going to get outside again. There's a set of keys next to the fruit bowl, and one of them fits in the back door. I'm saying over and over that I don't want to be here. I want to go home. Mum is telling me to mingle and relax and have fun, not ruin this for her, and husband is starting to pick up on what I'm feeling and wants to go too. Mum had just made us all drinks, and is starting to head back toward the living room when we hear the front door slam open. A guy shouting and demanding payment for drugs, and everyone else starts shouting, swearing, and screaming. Needless to say, I was straight out the back door, followed by my husband and Mum. We were there for about 30 minutes in total, and it wasn't until we got back to safety that I felt like I could breathe again.
When I was a kid, my mom fell into a marriage with an abusive man. He never laid a finger on her while they dated, but he beat the out of her on their wedding night. We'll call him George. We had moved halfway across the country with him, and he made a lot of money, so my mom didn't need to work, which meant we were properly trapped. She didn't have access to his money. All we had was her car. I was about 8 years old at the time. One day, while he was at work, we packed up the car and left him behind, driving back across the country to the city we were in prior. When we got back into town, we checked into our hotel and went to sleep. Sometime the next day, we went to my mom's favorite hangout, a restaurant bar spot. My brother, 17 at the time, we'll call him Matthew, was a bit psychic. I don't care if you think it's real or not, to be honest. And we're just hanging out having a good time when he suddenly knew that George was near. He grabbed my mom's arm and said, "We have to go now." Mom didn't want to go, thought Matthew was just scared, etc. He basically had to drag her out of there. We got in the car, and as we were sitting at the exit of the parking lot waiting for traffic to pass so we could pull out, George pulled in. Terrifying. In 2008 in college, my friends and I broke into an old abandoned hotel from the 1930s in Mineral Wells, Texas. It was straight out of a time warp. Out of, I believe, 12 floors, we made it to 3. We went up past the pool. Apparently, the hotel was famous for this because of the minerals in the water that supposedly cured illness. Around the kitchen and massive ballroom floor, past the old elevator with the pull gate, where a kid apparently got his head severed, and by lots of old creepy bedrooms with the furniture still in them. Then we heard a noise, a super loud screeching noise down a hallway that was pitch black. We all shined our lights in the direction, saw nothing but the sound was getting louder and louder. We all bolted as fast as we could. No clue what it was, but I've never been more terrified in my life. I drove for Lyft off and on for about a year. This was in Charlotte, North Carolina. I took on a ride that was in an outlying neighborhood at the airport. So I go to the address, and it's on the road with a few houses, all dark. Street lights were few and far between. I got to the address, and I can't find any house numbers. I pull into the driveway that's listed, wait not even 30 seconds, and get a feeling something isn't right. No house lights come on, no message or call asking to wait. I don't see anyone, so I back out and leave. Right as I get to the end of the street, I get another ride request from the same location. I declined and got out of there fast. Walking home one night, I tried to take what I thought was a shortcut through an industrial park. I lived in an area my whole life. I knew there were on a way through, but couldn't check as my phone battery was depleted. So I'm walking in what I feel is the right way, and I get toward the edge of the industrial park. The road keeps going, but there are no streetlights there. The road looked like a fairy tale description of what you expect a dark, tree-lined road would be. The feeling of a bad place to travel down that road was so overwhelming that I went back and took the long way home. When the Virginia Tech shooting happened, my own college in southern Maryland went into preventative lockdown. My best friend and I snuck off campus to go to the mall anyway. We weren't trying to be careless, we were troubled. Staying in our rooms watching the news was painful. Staying in and not watching the news felt impossible. So, we didn't stay in our rooms. Stupid, but I think understandable. We were in a Walden Books trying to distract ourselves when I heard a shout and looked out into the mall to see 3 or 4 teenagers running the same direction past the bookstore, and my brain immediately went into fight or flight mode. I grabbed my friend and dragged her into the back of the store through the employees-only entrance and into a bathroom. I locked the door, and we crouched down on the floor in the dark for 5 minutes. I called my mom on my flip phone because I was convinced that we were in a mass shooting situation. Literally nothing was happening. I was just on edge from a bunch of kids my own age in a similar situation to my own being murdered 300 miles away. I've been in a few potentially life-threatening situations since then. I was in Sudan teaching English when riots over the rising prices broke out, and was shoving my students onto buses at the school's back door while tires were being
set on fire at the front door. But while I was aware of the possibility that things might go badly in those situations, that was the one time I really thought things are actively going very badly right now. Two buddies and I just graduated university and were out on the town one night bar hopping. We were feeling no pain from a night of drinking, and while walking back to my apartment at the end of the night, we spotted a pretty wild house party happening. Music playing, people in the front yard, and the front door open. We walked over and started talking to some guy out front. He invited us in, and we found some beer in the kitchen and started to drink. My other buddy started playing beer pong with this group of women. They'd never played before. We were having fun, but the conversations I was trying to have were these people just seemed off. I finally asked the guy that we had first met out front if he went to the same university we had just graduated from. He looked confused. He then told me that he was in high school. I laughed it off. No way. And as I looked around the house at the people, there was this panicked realization. We were officially at a high school party. How did we not realize this walking in? My heart sank and I suddenly felt sick to my stomach. Here we were, with a house full of underage teens drinking in a stranger's house. I felt like I was going to puke, grabbed my buddies and yanked them out of there. Thankfully, nothing bad happened and we got out of there, but to this day, we still laugh about this drunken mix-up. I went to a house party in college with a group of 5 other friends. It was hosted in a lofted apartment, and the whole drive there I kept saying we shouldn't go because I just had this horrible gut feeling something bad was going to happen. An hour after arriving mid-beer pong game, there was a loud cracking noise and the floor gave out, similar to the way the Titanic split in half. Myself and the group I went with all fell 12 feet to the concrete floor below, along with the folding table and a bunch of glass bottles. The only people hurt? Myself and 2 friends. I remember looking up once I hit the floor and seeing the refrigerator about 2 feet from falling down on top of me. I think I said, "I told you so," for the rest of the year. We're her gal pals she met during a brief unemployment stint. It was a couple of acres of land with pools, jacuzzis, outdoor bars, grills, etc. Being an outcast, I never networked with anyone from town and had little knowledge about anyone's business. Anyways, we show up because she insisted. After arriving, something seemed strange. Our host immediately seemed to be checking us out and discussing things about us. We were given very strong alcoholic drinks, and throughout the night, butlers and waitresses kept trying to get us to take off more clothes with every drink. Eventually, I found myself in a bathroom with a stranger telling me that he can't wait for the noob gangbang, which is where I realized what was going on. My idiot girlfriend had gotten invited to a swingers orgy. Long story short, I had to drag our drunk asses out and drove away until we were close enough to book a hotel room. My husband and I went on a road trip across the province last year, and on the last part of the trip, we booked a hotel for the night because we were too tired to drive. We checked into the hotel, went to our room, and I immediately felt uncomfortable. Something just wasn't right. Went to use the washroom and the toilet overflowed so much that it went past the bathroom and into the bedroom. So we switched to a different room. There were some drunk people out back, blood on the ground. In front of our door, we could hear women screaming in the woods behind the hotel. And we saw some guys pull up in a van and unloaded hundreds of boxes into the room next to us. I started crying and said, "We need to leave. I don't care that the room was already paid for, and I don't care how tired I was. I was driving the rest of the way home, 9 hours. A week later, there was a news report of the hotel being used for trafficking women and drugs. My girlfriend and I were hiking Mount Carlton, 820 meters, when all of a sudden our phone started sending multiple warnings of a tornado in the area. Reception is terrible there, so we only got the message closer to the top, and for a usually busy hiking area, it was eerily quiet. The top of this mountain has a lone fire watch cabin from many years ago, and a 360-degree view stretching miles of land in a national park. This is a spot where people would usually relax with a long hike and take in the sights. While taking in the sights, we could see clouds forming in areas and another warning sent to our phone. We were already on high alert, but this was our, yep, let's get the hell out of here. As we started trekking down the mountain into the more wooded area, the sky all of a sudden turned pitch black, and the loudest snap of thunder we've ever heard came just from above us, giving us a nature jump scare. Seconds later, pouring rain came down and turned our trail into a small river, covering our hiking shoes. Soaked to the bone, but happy we were getting closer and closer to our car. A hiking trip to never forget.